In tonight's news edition, His Majesty the Supreme Commander attends a joint drill by Jordanian and British troops. Daesh terrorists launch attacks near Damascus and Russian sappers remove mines in Palmyra. And the fallout from the tax havens leaks continues across the globe. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. A royal decree named a new board of commissioners of the Independent Elections Commission. The 5-member committee is headed by Khalal, who quit his cabinet post as Minister of Political and Parliamentary Affairs. Another decree accepted the resignation of the outgoing board, chaired by former Minister Riyad Shak'a. And a third decree also accepted the resignation of Khalal from the cabinet. His Majesty the King, the Supreme Commander of the Jordan Armed Forces Arab Army, was in the field for a joint military drill by Jordanian and British armed forces. Upon arrival at the site of the military drill dubbed Thunder of the North, the King was welcomed by his advisor for military affairs, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mish'al Zaban, and His Royal Highness Prince Faisal bin Hussein. The war games included mock field reconnaissance operations, counter-ambush tactics, evacuations of casualties, and administering first aid to the injured through a specialized field hospital. The participants displayed high skills and fitness throughout the various stages of the drill. The exercise aims to boost military cooperation between the armed forces of the two countries through joint training programs. His Majesty voiced his admiration of the level of planning and coordination between the participating units. The cabinet has agreed new incentives, including tax exemptions to the information technology sector, to spur investment in the IT business. Information and Communication Technology Minister Majdi Shweke said the incentives are the starting point to fulfill His Majesty the King's vision of Jordan as a regional IT hub and knowledge economy. Shweke said that after a thorough study in cooperation with the private sector, the ministry had defined the basic needs and requirements to uplift the IT sector as an engine of growth. She said all the proposals and recommendations had been adopted by the Investment Commission. Daesh militants launched attacks on Syrian government-held areas near Damascus. A Syrian military source said the offensive appeared to be in response to a terror group's loss of ground elsewhere. The group said in a statement it had attacked the Tishreen power station northeast of the capital. The military source acknowledged the group had staged assaults, but said all those who took part had been killed. Syrian forces backed by Russian airstrikes have forced Daesh from areas further northeast of Damascus towards the ancient city of Palmyra, which was captured by the government last week. Also in Palmyra, a Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson said Russian sappers had already cleared 1,500 mines from the city. The aim is to clear the historic part of the ancient city as well as residential areas. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry defended Russia's efforts against those who doubt the country would play a positive role in ending hostilities in the Middle East. Speaking in an interview ahead of a new round of Syrian peace talks in Geneva, Kerry reiterated his belief that Syrian President Bashar al-Assad would ultimately need to step down in order for peace to be achieved.
The war will not come to a complete ending, closure, if Assad, against the wishes of the opposition, unless there's some agreement that I'm not aware of that gets reached with the opposition somewhere in time, you can't end the war. Because the opposition will not end fighting because of what he is deemed to have done to their people, to the people of his country. And the opposition is a determined opposition that has survived even the Russian bombing and even the toughest onslaught of Assad for 5 years. They're not going to suddenly disappear.
Syrian refugees continue to pour into the kingdom in the hundreds. Up to 310 people displaced by the Syrian war crossed the border over the last 24 hours. The Jordan Armed Forces Arab Army said border guards provided escort and necessary aid to the newcomers and transferred them to shelters and refugee camps. It said personnel of the Royal Medical Services attended to ill refugees. Iraqi troops continued their push to retake villages north of the country from Daesh. Military sources said the Iraqi army retook large parts of the strategic village of An-Nasr, south of the city of Mosul, after ferocious fighting with Daesh terrorists. The source said the army captured the village, but were forced to retreat because of the strong resistance and attacks by suicide vehicles and explosive devices. A Sunni tribal leader was killed during the fighting. According to military sources, Iraqi troops will continue their advance to retake the villages east of the river Tigris and then the oil town of Qayara on the western bank. U.S. President Barack Obama said he spoke with Defense Secretary Ash Carter about how the Pentagon should be organized to meet global threats, including from Daesh terrorist group. Obama was meeting with combatant commanders and the Joint Chiefs of Staff to discuss the threat by the terrorist group.
We are working to make sure that we're accelerating the campaign against ISIL in Syria, in Iraq. ISIL continues to lose ground. Coalition forces recently severed the main highway between ISIL strongholds in Raqqa, Syria, and Mosul in Iraq. And we continue to take on their leadership, their financial networks, their infrastructure. We are going to squeeze them, and we will defeat them. But as we've seen from Turkey to Belgium, ISIL still has the ability to launch serious terrorist attacks. One of my main messages today is that destroying ISIL continues to be my top priority. And so we can no longer tolerate the kinds of positioning that is enabled by them having headquarters in Raqqa and in Mosul.
Dozens of migrants stranded in a makeshift camp under poor conditions in northern Greece held banners and chanted, "Open the borders." The camp is home to some 12,000 migrants, many of them Syrian, who are hoping to resettle in Western Europe. Human Rights Watch's German director condemned an agreement which has begun returning migrants from Greece back to Turkey. He said his group was not allowed access to speak to the migrants on the Greek island of Lesbos. Human Rights Watch is monitoring the asylum-seeking process and to observe the return of migrants to Turkey. Turkish Coast Guards intercepted some 63 migrants at various locations as arrivals of migrants crossing by sea from Turkey to Greece fell sharply. Turkey said it was ready to take in another 200 migrants deported from the Greek island this week. China launched a retrievable scientific satellite into space in a bid to study microgravity and life science there. State broadcaster CCTV showed footage of the satellite in its launch center in northwestern China. The launch was deemed a success, according to the head of the mission area's command center. The bullet-shaped probe will house 19 experiments while in space, including microgravity fluid physics, microgravity combustion, space material, and space biotechnology. The leader of Britain's main opposition party called on the government to tackle tax havens. Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn said it is time Prime Minister David Cameron also allowed the super-rich elite not to dodge their taxes. Swedish banking group Nordea said it would end its association with law firm Mossack Fonseca at the center of the Panama Papers scandal. Iceland's prime minister has stepped aside, becoming the first global politician brought down by the Panama Paper leaks. The fallout from the tax havens leaks continued across the globe. Here's more.
The fallout from the Panama Papers keeps spreading. France now says it will put Panama back on its blacklist of tax havens. The French finance minister calling the country a non-cooperative tax jurisdiction. The major document leak from law firm Mossack Fonseca has sparked fresh debates on the existence and purpose of tax havens. And while many think of Caribbean nations, campaigners say these financial centres are found across the world.
Some of them are in places that you might not imagine. So, for example, Delaware in the US is commonly known as a tax haven or secrecy jurisdiction. So it's not just these islands in the sun. In terms of a ranking, some seem to be doing better than others, but there are some really simple solutions that could be in place across the board that would just help raise the standard and make sure that those tax havens themselves are not complicit in corruption, money laundering, crime.
Tax havens offer wealthy individuals and companies low or zero tax rates and a high degree of anonymity. Generally, their activities are legal, taking advantage of complex accounting systems and loopholes.
The UK tax code is around about 20,000 pages long. That's 20 times longer than the longest novel, War and Peace. Contrast that with Hong Kong's tax code, which is 276 pages long. The more complex the tax code, then the more likely it is that you will have these tax havens.
Many popular havens have tightened rules in recent years, including Switzerland, Luxembourg and Singapore. But places like Panama and the British Virgin Islands have been criticised for not following suit. They may now have to.
U.S. presidential candidate Ted Cruz won the Wisconsin presidential primary. The win dealt a blow to frontrunner Donald Trump's hopes of amassing the delegates needed for the Republican Party's nomination ahead of the July convention. Cruz's win was a breakthrough for his Republican Party forces battling to block Trump. It raises the prospect of a prolonged nominating fight that could last to the July convention. Cruz told supporters he was confident he would win the Republican nomination. Democratic presidential contender Bernie Sanders also won in Wisconsin, gaining momentum in his fight against frontrunner Hillary Clinton and trimming her commanding lead in delegates. Trump has 737 convention delegates to Cruz's 481 heading into the vote, leaving him 500 delegates short of the 1,237 needed to become the party's nominee in the November 8 election. Like many children with imaginations fired by animated films, Hong Kong product and graphic designer Ricky Ma grew up watching cartoons featuring the adventures of robots and dreamed of building his own. Unlike most, however, Ma has realized his childhood dream at the age of 42 by successfully constructing a life-size robot from scratch. The fruit of his labor of a year and a half and a budget of more than $50,000 is a female robot prototype he calls the Mark I, modeled after a Hollywood star whose name he wants to keep under wraps. Mark I responds to a set of verbal commands spoken into a microphone. It can also move its arms and legs, turn its head, and bow. Italian luxury brand Gucci announced it will unify its women's and men's collections starting from next year in an effort to simplify the designer's business. The first show combined women's wear and menswear will be at Gucci's New Milan headquarters. The fashion house did not specify when the show will be scheduled, but a source close to Gucci said it was likely to be during the Women's Fashion Week, the most receiving most attention from both media and buyers. The decision comes amid a growing debate in the fashion industry over the need to combine collections, condense dates for shows, as well as putting items on sale immediately after the catwalk presentation. The World Surf League released a dramatic set of pictures late last month announcing the nominees for the Tiger Wipeout of the Year award. The video features the talents of surfers from all over the world, including Matt Becker, Tom Dosland from the US, Pedro Calado from Brazil, and Nicolo Porcella from Italy. The Tiger Wipeout of the Year award is part of the Big Wave Award 2016, which aims to honor the top 10 men and women in surfing over the previous 12 months. Surfers can win up to $250,000 in prize money from the various categories, including the Ride of the Year, Biggest Wave, and the Paddle Award. Former NBA player Yao Ming, who has been selected for the Basketball Hall of Fame, said that he has considered setting up a Hall of Fame for China's sports. Alongside China's Yao, Shaquille O'Neal and Allen Iverson headlined the 2016 Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame class that was announced on Monday. Ming spent 9 seasons with the Houston Rockets, finishing his career as an 8-time All-Star and averaged 19 points and 9.2 rebounds in 486 games. Foot and ankle injuries forced 7'6" tall Yao to cut short his career in 2011. And finally, it'll continue to be fair for the rest of tonight with light variable winds. Warmer conditions are expected to prevail across the kingdom tomorrow, though with some drizzles in the eastern regions and northwesterly moderate to brisk winds blowing dust in the Badia. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect relatively hot conditions tomorrow with a high of 32 degrees Celsius, while winds will be northerly moderate to brisk and the seas calm. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. To end the news, here's a reminder of our top stories. His Majesty the Supreme Commander attends a joint drill by Jordanian and British troops. Daesh terrorists launch attacks near Damascus and Russian sappers remove mines in Palmyra. And the fallout from the tax havens leaks continues across the globe. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Nancy Khair. Thank you for watching and have a good night.